Welcome to the Mojo Mundi podcast, where it's all about magic, manifesting, and movement. I'm Ginny Watts, the Dancing Witch, and today I am excited to explore the relationship between allowing, letting go, and giving up. I have witnessed clients, friends, and family struggling with assumptions about what it means to allow, often indicating that allowing, in their eyes, is just giving up. I have also wrestled with confusion, fear, and frustration around allowing. Are allowing, letting go, and giving up mutually exclusive? Are they synonymous? Are they similar but not identical? Part of our confusion comes from not being clear with ourselves what we mean when we use each term. It also arises in beliefs and experiences that we have about these concepts, beliefs and experiences that are often out of our awareness. Let's begin with agreeing on what we mean by each of these terms. Take a moment and turn your attention inward. Say the phrase, giving up, to yourself. Use it in a sentence or two. What emotions do you experience? What memories arise? What thoughts follow? What physical sensations do you feel in your body? Merriam-Webster defines giving up as, quote, to cease doing or attempting something, especially as an admission of defeat, often used with on, as in giving up on. Does the definition resonate with you? To give up on our dreams, to give up on ourselves, deity, or higher power feels discouraging, depressing. Giving up on our dreams brings us into a focus on losing and lack. When we give up on something, that is not allowing. Merriam-Webster also defines giving up as, quote, to desist from, abandon, to declare incurable or insoluble, to despair of seeing, to allow a hit or run in baseball while pitching. And although not included in this definition, giving up may also refer to a physical act, as in giving up, also called surrendering a weapon to the police. Take a moment to connect with each of these definitions of giving up. To desist from, abandon. To declare incurable or insoluble. To despair of seeing. To allow a hit or run in baseball while pitching. To be required to surrender something. What feelings, thoughts, and sensations does each evoke in you? Each of these definitions is also antithetical to allowing. Each definition focuses on the lack of something, on loss, on despair, on impossibility, on hopelessness. Another definition of giving up that Merriam-Webster offers may seem to connect with allowing. Quote, to abandon oneself to a particular feeling, influence, or activity, to devote to a particular purpose or use. I will repeat the definitions again while you take a moment to feel how you resonate with each of them. To abandon oneself to a particular feeling, influence, or activity. To devote to a particular purpose or use. You may recognize thoughts, emotions, memories, and sensations that are positive, like those associated with swinging as high as you can in a swing, or diving off a diving board into a cool pool on a hot day, or falling into the arms of someone you love who loves you back. You may experience thoughts, emotions, memories, and sensations that are unnerving, like getting completely caught up in what another person thinks of you, or gambling or drinking to excess and detriment, or becoming overwhelmed with worry. While there is the potential for positive emotions, thoughts, and sensations associated with these ideas of giving up, it is still not the same as allowing. What about letting go? Take a moment to turn your attention inward once again. Say the phrase, letting go, to yourself. Use it in a sentence or two. What emotions do you experience this time? What memories arise? What thoughts and physical sensations follow? Just as giving up has several meanings, the phrase letting go also has a number of meanings with different nuances of the basic concept. The Cambridge Online Dictionary starts its definition with let go, in the sense of releasing a physical grip on something, like fluffy, let go of the curtains. Allowing can be an actual physical act, but when we use it in the term the art of allowing, In the case of manifesting, it is a mental and emotional process and a spiritual practice. The second definition of letting go is more closely related to our discussion. It is, quote, to stop thinking about or being angry about the past or something that happened in the past. We can see a relationship between giving up, I'm not going to fight this angry battle in my head anymore, and the definition of letting go of the past. This idea of releasing thoughts, stories, and feelings is an important part of the path to allowing. Next, in the Cambridge Online Dictionary, comes the idea of letting go as releasing from bondage or indebtedness, and included under this definition is the use of letting go as a euphemism for being fired. While allowing may result in an action of releasing someone from emotional bondage or indebtedness, the act would be an outcome of the practice of allowing, rather than the practice itself. The last definitions have to do with letting go of restraints, rules, expectations, and responsibilities, as in the idea of being out of shape or sloppy because I let myself go, or yelling at someone because I just let go and let him have it. In the context of these definitions are the roots of people's resistance to allowing. An invitation to the art of allowing can stir all kinds of deep-seated worries and fears about loss of control of oneself or the loss of perceived control over situations or other people. What do these qualities of letting go evoke in you? The art of allowing is not giving up on something or abandoning hope, nor is it failing, nor is it relinquishing under threat of force. The art of allowing is not about permissiveness or lack of boundaries or loss of true control. The art of allowing will arise from, and it will also encourage, letting go of limiting beliefs or experiences of the past or perceived control of things outside ourselves, but it is simultaneously something larger that encompasses these outcomes and many more. The goal of allowing is the opposite of giving up on something. Stopping forward movement toward our goals and dreams or telling ourselves we have been defeated is not what allowing means. Allowing is quite different. It is a folding in of what's happening. Allowing asks us to believe, to permit, to invite. It is an adding in rather than a crossing out. The art of allowing asks us to trust that we are loved by deity, Goddess, Creator, Allah. Allowing encourages us to be patient, to recognize that we are a part of a complex and beautiful living, evolving experience that encompasses all that is in manifested form, and to understand that as we co-create, our actions are interwoven with everything. The art of allowing also implies that we are complete just as we are in our physical form, and that we do not have to control others or our environment in order to be safe in our relationship with the all that is and in our spiritual journey. The art of allowing asks us to recognize that co-creation is the purpose of everything that exists in physical form, and that diversity is the desired spiritual outcome of co-creation. In other words, the art of allowing is a complex, deep, and fundamentally powerful spiritual practice that is reflected in basic tenets of every major religion and indigenous spiritual belief system. While the art of allowing is profound, it is also simultaneously simple and accessible. There are an infinite number of points where we can access the practice of the art of allowing, where we may begin to experience allowing in small, doable experiments. Allowing is a receptive process. When we allow, we are permitting things to be the way they are without attempting to interfere. We are being receptive to what is. We are being accepting of others' autonomy and individuality. We are accepting and even welcoming things that don't feel good or desirable. Here is where giving up and letting go come in. In order to allow, we will likely have to be willing to give up control over others and the environment. That's right. We have to accept that we have control only over ourselves. We may have to let go of getting what we want right now in favor of getting what we want when it is the very best time to receive it. We frequently have to give up trying to dictate how the package looks and how it arrives in favor of delighting in the surprise of something better than we even dreamed of. We inevitably have to let go of trying to make something happen, trying to force or take pains or dig away at accomplishing something. Most importantly, we have to give up fear in favor of love. Allowing involves trusting in our higher power, source, in Creator, to know how everything is fitting in the bigger picture, in the physical world, in the trajectory of our life path, in the timing of events, in our own ability to embrace what we are seeking, and in so much more. If we genuinely recognize that there is something or someone infinitely greater than ourselves that is miraculously delighted to join cosmic power with our human dreams, then it only makes sense that we let that something do the heavy lifting. And equally sensible to feel great joy and gratitude in receiving deity's guidance and feedback, to recognize opportunities to do our part in the physical world, and finally, to have the manifestation appear in a unique guise from Creator, what often turns out to be a message of love wondrously designed to speak to us and only to us. Unfortunately, fear is so powerful. When we hear giving up or letting go or allowing, we think, yikes, loss of control, vulnerability, potential dumpster fire, possible maiming, impending doom and death. I have yet to meet a human being who is completely trusting and free of existential angst. Understandable. We have evolved to fear as a means of survival. Also, unfortunately, fear is the opposite of allowing. And allowing is necessary for us to be successful manifestors. On the flip side, we are also hardwired for love. And love is what allows us to allow. Though we all struggle to trust, to release fear, I also have yet to meet a human being who is completely unable to love or trust. I have worked with sociopaths and psychopaths, and even they have the capacity, albeit the narrowest and most fleeting, to experience moments of love and trust. I'd like to share a personal experience that exemplifies the relationships among qualities of giving up and letting go in the context of the art of allowing. I was recently surprised to find myself fixated on events from my high school days, events associated with a particular teacher. These memories began showing up over the last several months with surprising regularity. It wasn't that I hadn't thought about them ever before, but those moments of replaying this particular part of my past had been rare. Over the last few months, I have found myself replaying these events over and over, sometimes for several days in a row, every few weeks. Each time I have been assaulted by these memories, I have been unable to find my way to allowing. My only way of extricating myself was to turn my attention elsewhere. The memories are of a social studies teacher I had as a freshman in high school. To simplify the story, I'll refer to him as Mr. R. I went to high school at the same school where my mother taught English. I turned 14 a couple weeks into the first semester of freshman year. I was awkward, anxious, depressed, and self-loathing. My parents were great parents in many ways, and they loved me, and I knew that. At the same time, they were human, and each of them had had significant challenges growing up. I, too, had experienced several traumas growing up, just as my parents had. Some of those traumatic experiences were interactions with my parents, and they were never addressed between us. Some painful experiences involved other family members or friends of someone in the family, and I never told my parents about those events. As a result, I had reached the age of 14 with many beliefs about myself involving some form of my being unworthy, bad, stupid, and unlovable. My parents were both teachers and very conscientious and committed educators. So I also had a whole bag full of values that my parents had passed on to me. Important values about what education means, what educators should be doing, about how students and teachers were to interact. I walked into Mr. R's room loaded with all my history, my beliefs, my fears, my hopes, my vulnerabilities, and my strengths, and he and I knew almost nothing about all of these. I really liked and admired Mr. R. He was funny and engaging. He made social studies alive and fascinating. He was hip and cool, and I saw him connecting with kids that weren't necessarily the kids that might normally connect with a teacher. He and another teacher, Mr. F., were good friends and were very social with a group of the bright, artsy, sophisticated kids on campus. I wanted Mr. R to like me, and I had an expectation that I could do well in his class. In fact, I had a fear-driven need to do well in all my classes. And within the first week, something happened that shook me to my core. We had a class activity that required us to role-play individuals in different social classes. I was so wrought with anxiety that I was overwhelmed. I was then given the role of being a wealthy and unscrupulous land developer. I loathed the idea and struggled. When I went to Mr. R, frustrated and confused about how the process was going, he made it clear that he thought I was whining and that it was my problem. To be fair, I was immature and prissy and pretty inflexible in my thinking. What was painful was that the whole class heard his comments. He knew that, and it was unmistakable that they were meant to shame me. Sadly, his response was a perfect fit for my shame-based beliefs about myself, and because I believed that teachers know best, are to be respected, are the authorities, and because I had been shamed by my parents on many occasions, I didn't have any reason to see a problem with how Mr. R was acting. I didn't get angry with him. I hated myself. I continued to think he was great. I also kept my head down and said as little as possible throughout the rest of the year, and he was happy to ignore me. Time passed. As my world and my awareness expanded, I realized that my parents, who had always been drinkers, were actually functional alcoholics. They functioned in the outside world fairly well, but by the time I was 14, they were regularly dysfunctional at home. Eventually, they became more out of control in public as well. In my junior year, my parents went to a high school faculty party. I dropped them off and went to my friend's house with the family car. When I returned to the party at the appointed time to pick up my parents, my father was enraged and my mother was falling down drunk. My dad blamed me for not communicating with him. Mind you, this was in the days when kids were only beginning to have use of a portable dial-up phone that could be plugged into the wall in their rooms. There were no cell phones. He was livid that I didn't know I should have arrived earlier. When we got home, my mom fell getting out of the car and badly hurt herself, including bruising her face. The Monday after the party, my mom stayed home to heal. She asked me to get some paperwork from a teacher in the social studies department. I went into the teacher's office to find the teacher I was supposed to contact for my mom. Mr. R and Mr. F were the only teachers in the office. I asked about getting the documents for my mom. Mr. R and Mr. F began questioning me about where my mom was. Why wasn't she in school? They referenced the faculty party and what had happened. I told them I didn't know what was wrong or what they were talking about. The more angry and defensive I sounded, the more jeering they became. I walked out without the documents. This time, a bit of light dawned. They didn't like my mother, and by extension, without knowing me at all, they didn't like me. Just a few days ago, sitting with my cat at 6:30 in the morning, more than 50 years after these events unfolded, I was playing them over and over in my head. As I had done numerous times over the past few months, I allowed myself to have the anger and hurt. I acknowledged to myself that not only were these my feelings, but that it was completely understandable that I felt angry, hurt, and betrayed, then and now, as I replayed the events. I found myself saying the same scathing, critical things I always imagined saying to Mr. R. My cat looked up at me with some concern. In that moment, I thought about Mr. R. I thought about how important it was for him to be the cool, popular, progressive teacher. I thought about my mom, and how she believed that if she was saying something behind someone's back, she should be saying it to that person's face. She could be harsh and blunt, and she was determined not to be what other people thought she should be. Suddenly, I allowed another interpretation of the events to arise. All these years, I hadn't even realized that I had been angry with myself for getting into another situation where Mr. R would be justified in feeling contemptuous of me. Here was this event I should have somehow avoided. I now allowed myself to let go of the belief that if I had only taken control, the bad wouldn't have happened. I had no control over these men, or my mom, or my dad, or even knowing what was going to happen when I went into the teacher's office. And as I let go of the control, I realized that on that day so many years ago, deity had helped me to see the bigger picture, to see that this dynamic with Mr. R had nothing to do with me. Rather than a horrible event that I should have avoided, it helped 16-year-old me to be angry about how I was being treated and to release some of my self-loathing. What's more, my 68-year-old self could now see that it likely had little to do with my mom. Mr. R's behavior was born from his own beliefs, insecurities, desires, values. I was finally able to give up my limited view of the events, I let go of my 16-year-old pain and retribution. I gladly gave up Mr. R's role as the villain. I allowed him to be nothing more or less than fallible. The memory no longer had the weight of pain or shame. I was able to allow it to fade into the past. Finally, I was able to recognize that these memories had arisen so insistently over the past several months because deity was communicating to me that I had the experience and wisdom necessary to shift the vibration of this event and to allow it to resolve. I simply had to slow down and allow the process to unfold. I want to point out at this juncture that simple is not the same as easy. Allowing is a simple process, but it seldom appears easy at the start. We have explored the relationship between allowing, letting go, and giving up. We found that clarifying what we mean by giving up and letting go helps us understand how these concepts fit with allowing. Giving up and letting go are helpful when what we release is our need to control, to have to earn good things in our lives, to choose fear instead of love, and so on. When we give up these things, we leave room for trusting our higher power to communicate in magical ways with us, allowing us to do our part as we allow deity to do theirs, resulting in an amazing and wondrous spiritual interaction with a bonus outcome at the end. Our music is used by permission of the artist, Sean Phoenix. Thank you, Sean. And thank you to Bozeman Public Library for the Workbench Sound Studio located in beautiful downtown Bozeman, Montana. If you would like to learn more about allowing and how to find your unique style of manifesting, please visit my website, caravanofdreamsmt.com, or email me at dancingwitchmt@gmail.com. This is Ginny Watts, the Dancing Witch. Till next time, blessed be.